Good day, everyone. Welcome to another episode of my Python tutorial series. My name is Eliazar, and you are watching EA Lego Academy. Now, to take us further in our tutorial series, we want to be looking at some other widgets. Now, in our last class, we looked at some widgets whereby we talked about graphical user interfaces, and we said it comprises of window screens and widgets on these window screens. Now, we looked at the canvas project, which allows us to be able to create a background for us to draw on. Then we looked at the combo box widget, which is a horizontal rectangular shape that has a drop down for you to choose from a list of items, or for you to choose from listed items. We looked at that, and then we looked at the entry widget, which allows us to enter a single line of text. And then the last but not the least, we looked at the text widget, which allows us to enter multiple lines of text. Now, to take us further in this tutorial, we want to look at the message widget. So the message widget is similar to your label widget. Now, your label widget allows us to enter a single line of text, of non-clickable text, rather. Now, the message widget allows us to enter multiple lines of non-clickable text. That's what it does. So that is what we will be looking at. And then after that, we are going to look at the menu widget, which allows us to simulate something similar to what we have here. Now, if you look at my PyCharm IDE, my PyCharm integrated development environment, you will discover that when I move my mouse to the top left and I click on that those three vertical icons, dashes, those three vertical lines, it shows me a drop down. Now you discover at the very top we have some items listed in a horizontal fashion, or a horizontal manner. Now this text we have here, we call their background where they are placed a menu. So this rectangular region at the top of my integrated development environment is referred to as the menu widget. So we want to see how we can create something similar to this. That will be the next thing we're going to do. Now, the next thing we're going to look at is the Spinbox widget, which allows us to create a horizontal rectangular shape that allows us to choose from numbers from a range of values. So it's a horizontal rectangular shape that allows us to choose numbers from a range of values. We will be looking at that. Then we will also be looking at the progress bar. Now the progress bar allows us to be able to create either a vertical or a horizontal rectangular shape that simulates a loading effect, such that once the loading has been completed, or once it is done loading, it will perform an operation. So we're going to make it perform something once the loading has finished. Now the next thing we will look at is the scroll bar. So the scroll bar allows us to be able to scroll through our widget. So you will discover that when you type things that exceed your view, what you can see, you will discover that a scroll bar appears. So that is what we're going to try to create. That is the next widget. And then the next one we will create is the scroll text widget, which allows us to combine both the text widget we treated in our last tutorial and the scroll bar together. And then last but not the least, we're going to look at the Listbox widget. So without further ado, let us get started. Now you want to right click as usual, click on new and come down to Python file. So I will just give it a name, message. So I'm trying to create the message widget. Now, like before, we want to be able to import tkinter from our previous classes. So you just come here and say import. Let me increase the screen. Import tkinter. After that, you want to create a variable that represents your window screen. So you can come here and say tkinter tk. You can now decide to give it a title. So I will just call it message widget. So this allows us to create multiple lines of text. It's similar to your label widget in the sense that you cannot click on it, but it just shows us multiple lines of text that so we can use it to write a message and things like that. So I'll give it a geometry size of 300 by 400, and I will create a variable or an instance of my class, because the message widget is a class, and I'll specify that it is on the window screen. I'll come here and say text is equal to hello there, it is good to see you. So you will discover that this text I just wrote is going to be broken down into multiple lines. It's going to be broken down into, or rather, it's going to be broken down to multiple lines. So it's not just going to be on a single line on my window screen. And after that, I want to pack it. So again, I'll try to be fast but also efficient as well, so that you can be able to understand my concept of what I'm trying to talk about. So now this should allow us to generate a window screen that displays multiple lines of text showing this message that we just assigned to the text parameter. So this is a parameter, this is its argument. So you click on the drop down, click on current file, click on play, you will discover that it's going to display multiple lines of text. So the fact that we used the text, the message widget, that is the reason why this text that was written on a single line, it broke this text into multiple lines. And even if you expand the window screen, those texts do not change, so they still remain at their positions, at their position rather. So that is the reason, that's basically what the message widget does. It allows us to be able to display multiple lines of text. All right. Now you already know what this does. This is my TK class that allows me to generate a window screen. This is the title, whereby when you run your window screen, you see the title at the top, message widget, and then the next one, the geometry, that is the actual size of my window screen, and everything comes in between. That is the widgets we are trying to display on the window screen come in between. And then of course you need to have your main loop in order to generate the window screen. All right, so the next thing we want to look at is going to be the menu widget. So I will just say menu widget. All right, so now the first thing you want to do is to import your tkinter. To import tkinter, I'll create a variable window tkinter.k. I'll give it a geometry, or rather a title first. At the top, I will say menu widget, and then I will come down here and say win.geometry. Now I will give it a size of 300 by 400. Then after that, I'm going to start to display my menu. So first of all, I need to create a menu bar simulating exactly what we have here, the bar in which all this text will be on. So this top bar whereby we have file, edit, view. So to make it simple and straightforward, I will just create something similar to my file, but not having as many options as my file menu widget. So if there's something I want to explain to you, there's something I want to explain. This file is a menu on its own. So anything that allows you or that displays another drop down is itself a menu. So as much as we know that this bar whereby all these texts are displayed is a menu, when you click on each of these texts, you get a drop down. So for the fact that you have a drop down, they themselves are menus as well. So they are also menus. And every other thing that allows you to generate a drop down is itself a menu. So this is a menu as well. So you can have a menu nested inside a menu. So that's what we want to talk about. So now I will create my menu bar. I'll say tkinter.menu. So it's inside the menu class, which is a widget. I'll say win. It's on my window screen. Now the next thing I want to do is to create the file. That is something similar to this my file menu here. So I'll say file is equal to tkinter.menu. It's also a menu as well, but it is on my menu bar. So I'm going to pass menu bar because it is there. Now I'm going to pass a value called tear off. So tear off, which allows us to specify that when you click on this drop down, we don't get a dotted line. So normally when you are creating a menu in a programming language, you will see a dotted line at the top. So this tier of giving it an argument of 0 allows us to prevent that. So after I have done that, I can now come here and say menu bar dot add cascade. So cascade allows us to be able to add a menu to a menu. That is what cascade does. So it allows us to add a menu to a menu. And I'll come here and say label, and I will write the text file. Now there is another parameter called the menu parameter. It does something similar to your geometry managers. Now your geometry managers are what allow you to or they are what allows for our widgets to be visible on our window screen. So if you don't use your geometry manager to be able to display a widget on a window screen, you are not going to be able to see that widget. So this menu with the small letter M does something similar to our geometry manager, in the sense that it allows us to make sure that our menus are visible on the window screen. So that is what they do. They ensure that the menu is visible on the window screen. So because this my file is a menu, so I want to assign it as the argument for this attribute, rather sorry, for this parameter called menu. So this is a parameter, this is an argument. So after that, I can now decide to start adding text to my menu widget. Now, when you are trying to add text to your menu widget, you use the add command. So also label does something similar to your text parameter in your widget, such as your button widget or your label widget. If you want some text to be visible on that widget, you need to be able to say text. But when you are trying to make sure that text is visible on a menu widget, you want to say label. So label is similar to text. So I'll come here and I'll just say new file, or I'll say file, so that when I click on the drop down, I'll be able to see this. And I will not give it any command as of now. So we're going to do other projects whereby we're going to be applying everything we are learning here. So I'll just add another one, the add command. I'll say label, and I will say new file. So it's something similar to what you have here. When you click on this file, you get new project from version control. So let me do that. So new project from version control. It's not like it's PyCharm we're trying to develop, but let's just make it similar to that. So project from version control, and I'll just come here and give it a command of none. So I'm not giving it any command as of now. I can decide to create another menu option, just like my file. I'll say edit, but let's just leave it at 1 since we're not really doing much. So I'll come here and say file dot add separator. Now this allows us to draw a line separating the text on that menu widget. It does something similar to what you have here. This line separating your name project from your settings, separating your name project text or command from your settings command. So you can come here and say file dot add command. So I will just say label. So I want to be able to quit. I'll say exit. Now in tkinter, if you want to be able to close a window screen, you're going to call the instance of that window screen and then the destroy function. So the destroy function allows us to be able to close a window screen. And after that, you can now decide to run your code. But before you run your code, do not forget that the menu bar is not yet visible. I only made this my file using PyCharm as a case study. I only made it visible on the menu bar, but I've not made the menu bar itself that holds all those text visible on the window screen. Now, in order to do that, you want to come here and say win.config. Now, config is a function that allows us to perform an operation on the window screen that we did not perform before. So maybe you wanted to, or maybe you created a label widget and you did not put a text on that label widget. you can decide to use config to show that text later on in your code. So because I did not make the menu bar visible on the Windows screen, I want to now come here and use config to ensure that it is visible on the Windows screen. So I will say win.main loop in order for it to generate my Windows screen. So this should allow us to generate a Windows screen with just only the menu, um, just only the file menu option. And when I click on it, I get that drop down, new project from version control, and I have the exit button. So because I passed it a command, now when you say command is equal to and you pass an argument, all you are simply trying to say is that you want a situation whereby when that button is clicked, Python calls that function or Python executes the function. Now, if I should click on the file and come here and click exit, you will discover that it closes my program. So that is how you can create a menu widget. Now, also you can decide to add more options as well. I could just copy this like this. I could just copy from my file, paste it somewhere, paste it under here. Maybe I'm trying to create another option like edit as an example. I can just come here, change the value to edit, and then I'll come here, change the menu here to edit as well. And then when I run my code, you will see that I have another option beside it. Okay, I've not changed the text. So in order for you to have the proper text, you come here, you change it to edit as well. So edit. So because I did not use the add command to add other options to it, you will discover that when I click on it, nothing happens. So I don't get any drop down because it's the command that allows you to add options to a menu widget. All right, so the next one we're trying to develop is the Spinbox that allows us to choose from a range of values. So Spinbox widget. So we will try to be fast so that, but fast and efficient. So that is my policy. To import tkinter, you come here and say win is equal to tkinter.tk as usual in order to generate the Windows screen. And you come here and say win.title, and I will just say Spinbox widget. You can come here and say win.geometry, and then I will give it maybe 300 by 400. Now, in order to create the Spinbox, I will create an instance of the class. I'll say tkinter.spinbox, and I'll come here and I'll say it on my Windows screen. Now, for your Spinbox, you need to create a value, a range of values where it is starting from and where it is ending. Now, in order to create a range of values, you use the from parameter to specify its origin, and then you use the to parameter to specify its destination and assign it a value. So I'm saying that I'm starting at 0 and I'm going to stop at 70. You can decide to give it some font, and then you can decide to give it a size. So the size of the font, they can come here and say spin.pack in order to display it on the Windows screen. And after that, you can say win.main loop, and this will generate your Windows screen. Now, to make it a bit beautiful, I will just give it some text. I will say text is equal to tkinter.label so that it will have some aesthetics to it at the top. Say window text. So I'm going to display some text message. I will just say Spinbox below. So Spinbox below, you can come and give it some font. You say Arial, you say 30. You can come here and pack it text dot pack. You pack your Windows screen, your label widget. Then you can see your Spinbox. So when you click on this value, you will discover that it increases till it gets up to 70. So that is how you can create a Spinbox widget. So it just allows us to be able to choose from a range of values. Now the next one is the progress bar. So I'm going to quickly do a small program here whereby we're going to have a program that counts down, that loads when it gets to the last bar. it will now generate a window screen for me. So I will just say progress bar widget. Progress bar widget. So of course you want to import tkinter, which is the first thing. Say tkinter, create a window screen. Say tkinter.tk, then come down here, you say win.title, you give it a title, you say progress bar widget, then you can decide to give it some geometry. Say geometry, now just give it 300 by 400. Now after this, you just come here and say prg, which is for my progress bar. Now progress bar is inside the ttk module, so I will say from tkinter import ttk. So ttk is a module inside my tkinter module. It allows us to be able to access widgets that have aesthetics to them. Or rather, what I noticed with them is that most widgets gotten from the ttk class, they look similar to widgets on your Windows operating system. So they look similar. So I will say ttk.progress bar, and I will specify that it is on my window screen. I'll give it some orientation. The orientation just means how do you want it to be displayed. So I want it to be displayed horizontally, and I'll come here and say mode. Now this mode, it has two values. The first value is indeterminate, the next value is determinate. Now for the indeterminate, you're going to have a progressive increase of your progress bar till it gets to the last point. Now for indeterminate, you're going to have a dot or a box-like icon moving till it gets to the other end of the progress bar. So we're going to start with indeterminate. That gives us a progressive increase of our progress bar. Now I'll come here and I'll create a function, and I'll call that function load. So what I'm trying to do is that I'm trying to create this progress bar such that when I click on a button, that is when the progress bar starts. So I'm going to pass this function. This function is going to control each loading instance of my progress bar. It's going to control each loading instance. Now, in order for me to do that, I will need to import a module called the time module. Now, the time module allows us to be able to use the sleep function to be able to pause our program for some period of time, depending on the value passed to the sleep function. It allows us to measure time in seconds. Now, the very first thing I want to do is to give values to my progress bar. Now, this is how you give values to your progress bar. You just say value and you say equal to. Now, I'm saying that the very first progress bar is going to start at 20. Then, now there's a function called update idle task in your TK class that allows you to display each loading instance of your progress bar. Basically, it allows us to display an animation on the window screen. Now, since the progress bar will be loading in successive sessions, it's going to be displaying each loading instance of my progress bar. It's an animation anyway, because it's going to start from a particular value 0, then it's going to load 20 like that, 40 till it gets to 100. So there was something I was supposed to add to my progress bar. So I was supposed to add length that tells us how long the progress bar is going to be. So the progress bar is going to be 100. So it means that it's going to start from 0 and then it's going to get to 100. Now I will come down here and say my window screen dot update idle task. So update idle task allows me to show that particular value of my progress bar. So I'm going to get a bar loaded based on what I passed 20, and then I'll come here and say time dot sleep, and I'll allow it to sleep for maybe 1 second before it loads the next progress bar. So to save myself time, I will just copy this, since it's going to be showing me each instance of my progress bar each time as soon as I click on the button. So it's going to be showing me each instance of my progress bar. So I'm starting at 20, the next one will be 40, and then the next one will be 60, and the next one will be 80, and the next one will be 100. So when it gets to 100, it will now display another window screen for me. So I will just come here and create a window screen. I'll say win is equal to tkinter dot tk, and I'll come here and say win2 dot title. I'll just say new screen. So it's going to display this new screen by the time it is done loading. So that is what I am trying to do. And I'll come here and I will give it some size 300 by 400. And after that, I can just come here and display some text. I'll say tkinter.label and I'll say win2. So don't forget on my window screen too, I'll say text is equal to hello there. So you can decide to give it some font. I'll give it a font of Arial 30. After that, I will just pack it. So I won't pack it yet. Alright, let me pack it too. Pack. After that, you can now say win2 dot main loop. So now I've not packed my progress bar yet. I'm going to create a button that allows me to that gives me the ability to be able to load this progress bar. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to pass this function to the button. I'll say text and I'll just give it load. I'll give it some font of 30. Then after that, I can come here and pass my command. So I said the command is what allows us to be able to use a button to call a function. And after that, I'm going to pack the button. And I'll also pack my progress bar under this button. And after that, I'm going to call my main loop. So I'll say win dot main loop. So what am I doing here is this. I created a function that allows me to be displaying each size of my progress bar on the window screen after it has waited for 1 second each time to simulate an effect as if the progress bar is loading. And when it gets to 100, to now display a new window screen for me. Now everything will be triggered after I have clicked on this button. So that is what I'm trying to do. So click on play and you discover that, okay, so we needed to give it a, okay, so hold on. We need to be able to give it an initial value. So you need an initial value so that it can start loading. Initial value. All right. So it starts from there. Anyway, start from there initially. So you can click on load and then start to load. So when it gets to the last point, you will discover that it will now display a new window screen. Consider it got here to this point. So as the dot was moving, it was just allowing us, it was the update idle task that was allowing us to show each loading instance of my progress bar on the window screen. But that indeterminate was the second one I talked about. So the one that shows a progressive loading of my progress bar is the determinate. So let's quickly look at that so that we can continue. So now if I click on load, you discover that it starts to load till it gets to the last point. And when it gets there, we have our window screen. So that is how you can create a progress bar that is triggered by a button. Now the next one is my scroll bar. So the scroll bar allows me to be able to scroll through text. So scroll bar widget. So the first thing you want to do is to import tkinter. That's the very first thing. To import tkinter, and then you create a window screen for it. You say your tk class, and after that you say win.title. Give it a title. So I will call it scrollbar, my scrollbar widget. Then after that you come here and give it a geometry. So after that you give it a geometry. Then you can now come here and say 300 by 400, and then you can now start to create your scroll bar. So I'll just say scroll. So actually my scroll bar is gotten from a class called, or a module called Scrolledtext. I'll just say from tkinter import scroll text. So it's a module, it's a Python file. So I will come here and say scroll is equal to scroll text dot. Okay, I am jumping. We're not treating scroll text yet, but let me just do that since I've already started. Good. So I will just say scroll text dot scroll text. Now this allows us to be able to create a window screen. This allows us to be able to create a window screen that has a scroll bar automatically on it. It allows us to create a window screen that has a scroll bar automatically on it. So I'll come here and say font, and I will give it some font. Say Arial 30, and then scroll dot arc. So you can just say your window dot main loop and then run your program. So you discover that you generate a scroll text. So if you enter so many values, you discover that a scroll bar automatically appears. I was supposed to treat scroll bar first before this, but there's no problem. So we will quickly treat that now. But that is what the scroll text allows us to do. It combines both the text widget that we treated in our previous tutorial with the scroll bar as well. So now let's take a look at the scroll bar. Now I'm going to be combining the scroll bar with my Listbox widget. The Listbox widget is a widget that allows us to show text in a vertical manner. It looks like our text widget, but it allows us to show text that cannot be editable. So it allows us to show text that cannot be editable. So scroll bar widget. Now, okay, so I think I've already done this already. Let me just give it another name. So scroll bar widget 2. So scroll bar widget 2. Now the first thing you want to do is to import tkinter. Say import tkinter, and then you come here, you create a window screen for it. You say .tk, and after that you can give it some title. Say title, just call it scroll bar widgets, and you can come here and say win dot geometry, and you give it a size, and after that you can now come here and create your scroll bar. You say tkinter scroll bar. Now my scroll bar, in order to make it vertically scrollable, I will need to attach it to the list box. And in order to make sure that it syncs, I also need to specify that my scroll bar can access my list box. So there's something that we normally do. Now I'm not going to pass anything here to it. I will just say win, and I will come down here and I will pack it. So our Pack Geometry Manager has some options that we can use. Now the very first option is side. The side, or rather it's a parameter, but we call them options. So it's the side parameter that allows us to specify where we are trying to place our widget. So I'm specifying that I'm trying to place it at the right hand side of my window screen. So I want to place it at the right hand side. Now I'm going to create my list box. I'll just say list underscore is equal to tkinter. Now the reason why I said underscore is because there's an inbuilt class in Python already called list. So the list data structure from my previous tutorials. So that's Python does not allow you to use inbuilt class names for variables. So I'll say list box, and I will specify that it's my window screen, and I will not give it any text yet because I'm trying to add text to it using a particular method. And I'll explain that in a bit. I'll say font, and I will give it an Arial of 30, and I will come down here and I will say y scroll command. So y scroll command is what allows us to attach the scroll bar to a list box. And I will come here and say scroll dot set. So the set function is what allows us to specify that we are attaching the scroll bar to this list box. And I'm going to pack this list box beside my scroll bar. So I'll say side also is equal to tkinter dot right. But because I've already packed the scroll bar to the right hand side, this one will just be beside it. So I will say fill. So fill is another option that allows us to specify the region we want that widget to occupy. I will say that I want the scroll bar to occupy the entire y-axis, and I will just come here and say fill tkinter dot both. So I want this one to occupy both the top, that is both the x-axis and the y-axis. Now since I have packed my list box, I can now come here, create a for loop, create a variable for x in range of some values. So maybe I'm trying to generate 100 values. So I can come here and say my list underscore dot insert. Now there's a constant called tkinter dot end that allows us to specify the index position of each element we are trying to insert into a list box. Now if you can remember very well, we said when you are using the insert function, when you are trying to insert into a list data structure, you have to specify the index position, whether it's the 0 index or the 1 index or the 2 index. But now here, tkinter.end allows us to disregard that modus operandi. Tkinter.end automatically identifies the exact index where you are trying to insert that element to. So I can just come here and say, I open a quotation mark, I will say this is number, so this is number, and I'll use concatenation, and I will call the string class to convert the value of x to a string in order to display it on my window screen. So I'm not going to pack this yet anyway. Okay, I can pack it there. Then I can come here and say scroll.config. Now, if I'm using y scroll command to attach a scroll bar to a list box, I also need to ensure that that scroll bar can control that list box. And the way I can do that is to use the y view of the list box class. Say y view. The y view goes together with the y scroll command. Now after doing this, I can now come here and say win.main loop, and let us test our program. So you can see that here I created a list box beside my, you can see my scroll bar is already here. Now if I drag it, you will see that I'm able to view all the numbers from 0 to 100. So this allowed us to create a vertical scroll bar. So subsequently, we'll be looking at how you can create a horizontal scroll bar as well. So you can also create a horizontal scroll bar. So now this brings us to the end of this tutorial. So if you are enjoying what I'm doing so far, please hit the like button. And if you feel that my content will be of importance or of help to someone, please share. And please, to encourage me to continue doing more content like this, please hit that subscribe button. Until we meet again next time, it's goodbye for now.